Alright guys, it's Damien here. We're going to be going over the logs, and we're going to be going over how to find sort of where you're going wrong, where you're going right, find out anything that you need to compare yourself to other people, specifically the top people, for your spec or for your gear level and stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab that link that Vorth posted for Warcraftlogs, and I am going to to paste it in here. So it's going to take us to this landing page. Now, right off the start, you're going to see all the different fights. So normally, if you get a kill, it'll just say the kill. However, there were a lot of wipes, which I think are pretty much all or mostly Argus. So in any case, the thing that I like to start out with is logically you have to kind of figure out where is the best, most pure place for me to look for DPS, if you're looking for DPS. And in Antorus right now, that's probably Varmothras, because there's not a lot of mechanics to deal with. So if you're thinking, I'm doing really poorly on certain fights, it's because of my gear or because of whatever, that may or may not actually be true. So if you do well or better on Varmothras, it's you know your rotation, you know your character well. You're just not dealing with mechanics, right? If you do well all the time, you're doing great DPS and you're doing the mechanics well. So sorry, I'm still sick, but what we're going to do first on Varmothras is kind of go through the site and look at some of the features and functions that it has, and then I'm going to dig into how to actually do the comparisons. And I think it's important to show you kind of all the different options in the site, because you can use the options on the site to do the comparisons. So the first thing that you're going to land on when you go to any boss fight is the summary tab. Summary tab shows your raid composition. It shows your average item level right here. It shows the damage done. So it'll actually, put it out there in a little graph sorted by DPS, and you can sort it by, whatever you want, name if you'd like. Healing done by source, and damage taken by ability. Now, this is sort of important when we're trying to figure out what's killing us and why is it killing us and how do we mitigate that or fix that. So this is when we're sort of learning fights. So Torment of Flames and Varmothras is the stacking dot that, or stacking raid wide damage that just keeps happening over and over and over the entire time. So obviously that did most of the damage in the fight. It looks like we're taking about 2.7 million damage per second from that. Our best DPS on this fight was Lon, who did 1.3 roughly million DPS. Both the healers did really well because we were 2 healing, so we probably ranked pretty highly in this fight. So the first thing we're going to look at on the Analyze tab is damage done, and you can actually see all of your rankings here. Now there's 2 sets of rankings, and I'm going to try to go over it because this is, pretty simple. You have your performance amongst everyone of your spec. So as you can see here, Lon performed in the top 63% for all subtlety rogues. Now you can actually see how many people logged it. So this is out of 2,083 people. Fawns performed 47 percentile for all affliction warlocks out of 17,000 parses. So you can already see some classes are, much more widely played than, necessarily others. So subtlety rogues, I guess right now are not being played as much, or at least in the past 28 days, which is usually what this is shown to compare against. So in any case, this is your performance against all of your spec. Over here is a much more valuable number, in my opinion, and that's the item level percentile. And this is how well you're doing, both for your spec and for 1 to 2 points of your item level. So this isn't just how how well you're doing amongst, every single person that's ever logged. It's only the people that are roughly, 941, 949, whatever you are. Um, Almost always, you're going to do better at this item level percentage than at the total percentage. Now, the reason I say that is because we're kind of behind the curve in terms of strength, in terms of rating progression. So, the reason why the item level percentages is higher is because when you get compared to everybody, if on average those people are all, already gone through heroic mode, their gear is going to be better, so their damage is going to be better. Like, even if their rotation isn't quite as clean as yours, they're probably still going to do more damage because they have better gear. Um, However, your item level percentage is going to, match you up much more truly with someone, in your same boat. Now, there are situations where that can kind of be flipped, and we actually have some of those right here. You'll actually see right here, Athena is 29th percentile for his item level, but he's 41st percentile for total. So what that means is his bracket, between 949 and 951, it's highly competitive. And overall, though, he does better than most people. Generally, that swing when the item level percentile is worse than the overall performance, it means that class is not very geared, right? So he's probably more geared than most demon hunters. So you could be 99th percentile over here as overall performance, but you could be 1 percentile for your item level performance. So in that scenario, let's say you were all 980s and you were the worst 980 in the world, but you were still better than, a 975 or a 970 or for sure a 930. So some of those different ways to kind of look at it and balance it are important to distinguish because, you're not really going to be able to compare to most people, especially if they're mythic geared and stuff like that. You generally want to look at the item level percentage. So that's under damage done. Damage taken. This is a really important one too. If you're dying a lot, just look and see if you're taking a lot of damage, right? So this is damage taken, and you can actually configure it differently. So you can say taken by a friendly, or taken from a source, or taken from an ability. So if we switch to taken from ability, we actually see that breakout again of Torment of Flames. And we could go in and look at specific people if we selected that first. So we could go into, like, say Damien, and then say from ability, right? And then Damien took this much damage. So you could say, hey, I'm really good at this mechanic, but Ruiner always kills me. That kind of thing. So, in any case, let's go ahead and go over to healing. And this is still clicked on me, though, so let me go ahead and cancel it right up here. So this is the healing numbers, and you can just sort it and see the percentiles. So Crumpet is 99th percentile overall, but 100th percentile for her item level. So she's technically ranked as the best healer we have. Anyway, if we click on a person though, we can actually see how that person is healing. So you can see here, I actually heal most of my stuff through atonement, which is one of the ways that a disc priest uses to heal. So if you wanted to kind of dig into maybe healing numbers a little bit, you could actually see what you're doing, how many times you cast certain things, how much value you got from each cast, that kind of stuff. So in any case, let's keep trucking along. I'm going to cancel myself. Threat, generally, you don't need to look at this anymore unless your tanks are just terrible, which ours are not, so that's irrelevant. Buffs, this is really good. If you go through here, you can actually look at specific people and check their buff up times. That being said, This is going to be one of the functions and features that we're going to use in the compare. And we'll do that a little bit later. So for now, we're going to skate over this. Debuffs, same deal. Deaths, nobody died on Varmothras, so it doesn't show any deaths. Interrupts, if the fight has interrupts, this will show, who's doing what. Dispels, same thing, but the healer side. Um, Resources, this is going to show a lot of different kinds of information, so don't worry about this. This is if you're trying to, manage resources like mana or rage or something like that. You would generally look at that not as a total as well. And then you have casts. So this is how many people are casting how often. So you can also see active uptime, clicks per minute, um, item level just for reference here, and then the total number of clicks. So it looks like on this fight, Lon clicked the most. He clicked 336 times. The person that clicked the fewest times was Alphonse with 147. Average number of clicks is 78 versus 34. So in any case, that's the Analyze tab. Now, the Compare tab is where we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of looking at your rotation, looking at your gear, looking at your talents. So I'm going to save that for last. Let's go ahead and skate over problems. Now, under problems for Varmothras, there's not a lot of mechanics. So you can see, we had one piece of avoidable damage that Athena took for 268k. It's not even worth noting. If we looked at, for instance, Kangaroth, you're going to see a lot more problems. These are the people that got hit by Ruiner, for shame, dishonor on your family, all that kind of stuff. Flame reverberation, that's those little lanterns that get placed on the ground. Almost always you're going to see melee get hit by this. Notice, tanks don't tend to take damage, so it's okay if they get hit usually. So 2 hits did, 700k, whereas Athena took 1.5 million per. Ruiner, as you can see, like Ivor took 2 hits, did 0 damage. Vorth took 2 hits, did 600k. Whereas, Nala got hit twice and it did 2.5 million. So tanks can kind of run through these with no problem. In any case, that's what the problems tab is. It's just going to show you some of the stuff that happened and why it happened and who caused it. It'll also show you how many people have pre-potted and potted. So you can see right here, there's quite a few people that, use both potions in the fight. There's a couple that only used one. Maybe they didn't get their pre-pot off in time. Maybe they forgot to re-pot after a minute or whenever their next spike was, that kind of thing. Generally, you won't see healers pot unless they need mana. So that's just that. Health zones. This is if you actually use your health stone. If you get one shot, there's not a lot of point. If you took some sustained damage and then you died, this should be 1 for your character. Like on Argus, everyone probably needs a 1 here. In any case, that covers problems. Rankings is just a page for just rankings. One thing to note real quickly on this page is that the rankings happen and are shown regardless of what your role is. So as you can see here, as our tab is damage, it still shows tanks and it still shows healers, which I guess tanks it is pretty important for their DPS, but healers not so much. And you can see, Nala ranked 25th percentile for damage, having done 0 damage. So, that just kind of shows you that that's not a really good metric for, like, I don't know, a healer. On healing, you're going to see a different number, and we're still on Kingroth. Let me go back to Varmothras. Just so we can kind of see more consistent numbers. So this was the damage again and the healing. Now, I've noticed sometimes that the ranking percentiles and stuff are a little bit different on this page. I'm not sure why that is exactly, but they can be a little bit different. And then you'll see here, healer rankings. Crumpet gets 99 percentile because, frost mages aren't supposed to heal that much or something. I'm not sure. And then there's finally, as in our big tabs, there's the replay button. The replay button will let you actually watch the fight and see what happens. So down here, you're just going to have a play button. You hit play. This can only be done if you have advanced combat logging going on. So um, you're going to see all the people fighting Varmothras here. These are the melee. These are the tanks. These are the ranged. And, every X number of seconds or so, you're going to see everybody kind of swing over. So this fight isn't particularly fun to watch. If you want to watch a fun fight, watch Kingaroth and see, people running around balls and trying to get on those green swirlies and getting hit by Ruiner, and see the entire raid run for their life in a circle and stuff like that. That's a very fun fight to watch. So in any case, that's what the replay function does. You can bring up damage meters. You can bring up healing done, healing received even, and see like when people are getting healed by what thing. So in any case, that's the replay function. Let's get into the nitty gritty of compare. This is what most of you probably are wanting to see anyway. So under compare, there's a couple different ways we can do it. We can compare people's reports specifically. So I could say compare Vorth with, I don't know, methods, mythic rating, whatever, and compare our numbers to them. Just the report versus report. And we could look at the entire thing versus each other. That one's not generally super useful for an individual, more like a raid leader that's trying to figure out some stuff. You can compare two people inside the report. So you could compare Athena and Chanarak, or Dwartner and Sniper Wolf. Generally, I would stay within the class just to get a better feel for it. But down here, this third option is really where our bread and butter is. So we're going to select a player. And I'm going to actually do two different ones. I'm going to do a healer myself, and I'm going to do a DPS, which will be Alphonse. So I'm going to start with Alphonse, and then I'm going to compare the metric for damage. Now, we have a couple options here. Fight length. Whoever fight we're comparing against, must be within 10 seconds of our fight length. So if our fight took 4 minutes, it'll be either 3 minutes 50 seconds or 4 minutes 10 seconds. And it only applies this value to kills, not wipes. We have raid size. Generally, the raid size is much more important if you're dealing with healing, because healing more people is kind of hard to compare to healing less people. But DPS is DPS is DPS. So unless there's some mechanic where once you get 15 people, there's an extra ad on the boss or something like that, it's generally not that important for DPS to compare. And you might be able to get a few extra players to compare against. We're comparing against people that are within 2 item levels of us. And we're only looking at people that are doing, that have logged within the past month or so. So let's go ahead and search. And it'll bring up a list of the top 50 people. Now, because this is Alphonse, he's probably on this list. So Alphonse is in the top 50 people for this fight that have logged it on normal. So he's 41st ranking out of all Affliction Warlocks. So, that's probably pretty good. And let's look at what his actual damage was. So he did about 1.2 million right here. And he was in a 13-man, and it lasted 4 minutes 15 seconds. So up here, this guy, well, he did, 200k more roughly, 250k more. He was in a 14-man, so he had an extra person, and the fight lasted about 3 seconds longer. He was on EU, and his item level was 943. So I think Fawn's is 941. So he does have a 2 item level advantage, but I don't know if that's 250k worth. So more than likely, there's something different about their rotations, specifically on this fight. And Fawn's might be able to make a really simple adjustment, and we're actually going to go through and compare them right now. So the first thing I would always look at when I'm trying to figure out why my DPS is low or why my healing is low or anything is compare talents, the trinkets, and the legendaries, which that's what this whole column is. So if you look, every single person on this top 50 is running Malefic Grasp. Every single one of them. Now for the second one, almost every single one is running Contagion. but there are a couple absolute corruptions in here. So that might be a choice. Maybe that needs to get, changed or made. So it looks like Fonz is running absolute corruption, but the fan favorite is contagion for this one. Um, though, it does appear in the log. So I don't know if he really would need to make that change. That might just be a preference. It looks like almost everybody's using Demonic Circle, which I think that's your movement one, so who cares? Um, your fourth talent, every single person, well, not every single. Looks like most people are using the Soul Harvest instead of Phantom Singularity, but there's a couple. Um, most people are using Burning Rush, which I think that's another, utility skill, not a DPS one. And then Grimoire of Supremacy, it looks like, is universal. So I think Fonz pretty much has all of the major talents that they're picking, except for his he doesn't run Contagion. But there are a couple other people that run that in the log, so I don't think that's necessarily a problem. Um, so now once we get past those, we can actually start looking at, I'm sorry, I missed the 100 talent. So it looks like Siphon Life is the talent that the top person took. You have Soul Conduit. Every soul shard spent has a 20% chance to be refunded. So it looks like there's a little bit of variability here between like the blue swirl and the green ant. Even there's a Death's Embrace, I guess. So it looks like there's there's a lot of differentials to consider here, because some of these talents might scale better with certain stats, like maybe haste or crit or something like that. Um, so I'm not really sure how to compare these because I am not an Affliction Warlock. And then it'll show your trinkets. So it looks like this person's running Acrid Catalyst Injector and the Macari, whatever it is, focusing Amethyst. So it looks like just some stat sticks essentially. Um, and then the last two in any column is going to be your legendaries. So it looks like he's using the Chord of Lathendris and Pridaz. So Pridaz is basically just a stat stick, and crazy healing though. So it looks like a lot of people use Soul of the Netherlord, some Hoods of Eternal Disdain in here as well. There's a couple, Rings of the Grand Army. That's kind of surprising. Um, but anyway, it looks like his choices are probably okay for legendaries. Overall, what I would say that means is legendaries aren't a huge deal on this fight. Sometimes they might be, on this fight they're not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick up Elmagos, and I'm going to compare him to Alphonse. So the first thing you're going to see right off the bat is this big graph. This big graph is just going to show where the damage spikes and dips at. So you're going to see Alphonse is the aqua, and Elmagos is the purple. Alphonse spikes a little bit higher in the very beginning, and then seems to crash pretty hard. I'm not sure why Alphonse looks like he crashes a lot harder. So Fonz tends to go way up and then way down, way up and way down. Whereas Elmagos kind of seems to level off a little bit slower, or a little. He doesn't tend to crash quite as hard as Fonz does, and that might be a different choice in talents or something like that, because he did choose. Yeah, right here you can see Siphon Life has been selected as a talent over here, and not as Alphonse has chosen it. So over here, it's a pretty substantial piece of Elmagos' damage. Um, so the first thing I would do to compare people against each other is look at the order of their abilities. Are their main sources of damage the same? Unstable Affliction is both their top damage. Drained Soul is their second damage. Corruption, their third. Agony, their fourth. It looks like Siphon Life is his fifth, but Fonz didn't take that talent, so we can just ignore it for right this second. And then Doomguard. So and then Ren Soul. So they pretty much have the exact same damage pattern in terms of what's the most important. And then there's, some like Shadowbind and Torment the Weak. Some of these are the Netherlight Crucible talents, so we can kind of ignore those, to be honest. Um, so digging a little bit deeper, we can see that Fawns did 132 million with Unstable Affliction, whereas Elmagos did 125. Let me go ahead and remove these off, though. I don't want to see them right this second. Um, so Elmagos did a little bit less damage with Unstable Affliction. However, he also cast it quite a bit less than Fawns did. So what that kind of tells me is Elmagos is probably preferring um, either mastery or crit or versatility or something like that over haste. Because Fawns' average hit here is 85k, which I'm guessing that's like the base tick amount, versus 114. So it looks like Elmagos is just doing more damage per hit. Um, but Fawns probably has a lot more haste than he does. So this might be gearing choice differences. And if you wanted to really look at the person, a lot of the time you're going to be able to just straight up look at their armory. So I'm going to look up Elmagos right here. I put a space in the beginning. Remove that. And I think he was on Blackmore. So this is Elmagos, the Affliction Warlock. I can see what he's done. This is on Heroic. Let's go to Normal. And those are all his rankings. This is his gear. You can kind of see down here, what does he prefer. So if I did that and I looked up Alphonse as well, which it should just be Alphonse, there's no special characters. Where's Ilaria? What? Really? On Ilaria. That's crazy. Why won't it find Alphonse? There we go. So we can compare their stats. So it looks like Fawns has way less crit, less mastery, but a lot more haste. So that could just straight up be a gearing decision. It looks like Fawns has a little bit more versatility as well. So it looks like Fawns is preferring haste way more than crit and mastery. So maybe Fawns needs to tweak his gear a little bit. It really just depends on preference as well, obviously. And Fawns doesn't do poorly. So, um, in the end, um, he's not number one, but, who's to say it's maybe not that exact combination of gear for this fight only or something like that. So in any case, we can look at damage done. We can actually compare some other stuff too. So if we go to buffs, we can compare buff uptime. So maybe this person, like right here, Stormlash. So he got a little bit of buff uptime from Stormlash, whereas Fawns, Fawns actually got Stormlash as well. Well, in any case, Omegos did get like it looks like three extra buffs that Fawns did not. So there's some comparisons here to be done. Check your uptimes on certain skills. So it looks like Deadwind Harvester was up 10% more than it was for Fawns. So maybe that's a big deal. I don't know. But in any case, you can compare buff up times. You can compare how many dispels you performed, interrupts you performed, deaths that you had. Neither of them died, so that's not a big deal. Debuffs that they suffered during the fight. Um, and then casts. So you can actually compare up times and some stuff like that. So that covers the majority of how you're going to be able to do your comparisons. You really want to get into the number of casts to see when people are casting some things. One final note, and this is if you really, really want to get into it, you can go into timelines and you can actually see exactly when you casted things versus another person. So this is literally the timeline of the fight. So it looks like they both cast Agony at the same time. He just immediately started casting his Siphon Life, whereas Fawn's casted Corruption and then Soul Harvest. So you can compare the literal timeline of when things are happening. So you can say, hey, I'm not doing this right. This guy is amazing. He has 3 times more damage than I have. You can see exactly what he's doing. You know, there's no secrets in the log. Everything is available to be seen and to be understood. It just takes the time to kind of go through and look at it. If you have questions or you want me to cover anything else, just let me know and I can make another video. This one's kind of gone on a little longer than I expected it to. So in any case, let me know, give me feedback on what I can change or improve. Thanks, bye.